am I talking about?
Statements and questions.
Oh, that's right. So the topic that came up to talk about today is statements and questions. Big difference there. Making statements. We're always making statements. It's quite often called a conversation. I make a statement, you agree, disagree, or don't know, or we kind of go back and forth and share, swap opinions and ideas and interpretations. And it's not incorrect to do that. It's just a lot of material being thrown up, a lot of dust being kicked up about this and about that, and what about this and what about that, and so on. Whereas a question is very direct. The question could be, how can I stop suffering? The question could be, a why question, which I don't care for those too much, but it could be. It could be, why am I suffering? Like the Buddha, apparently, according to history, said so many years ago, what is this? What is sickness, aging, and death? Why does that occur? What is that? And as the story goes, don't know exactly what happened. Sure, it looks like he saw sickness, aging, death, and saw that they were basically caused by craving or desire, or the way I like to say it, is wanting things to be different than they are. That's a tough one, because if we're not feeling very good, why wouldn't we want it to be different? The problem, or the issue that creates, is we just go by that initial feeling and we back away from it. And we have several ways of doing that. One of the ways is we start inventing stories about it. One of them being blame. It's because of this, or it's because of him, or what she said, or blaming ourselves, which is equally confusing. I keep doing that. I feel this way, I feel that way, and then I fight with it, so on and so forth. If we're making statements about things, then something occurs and we say this is happening or that's happening, and we're actually adding to what is arising. We're actually adding on to the karma that is already inducing. The actions that are coming out of past actions, cause and effect, that are rising now, we add on more stuff. We put as the word in sculpture, is a patina. We can't just leave it the way it arises. We need to put something on it. Our ideas, our opinions, our statements about it, about. Quite often when people ask me questions, instead of just making it a flat out, straight, direct question, they make a lot of statements around it before they get to the question. And sometimes people actually forget what they were asking, because they elaborate so much. The elaboration is so much of a description of how they're feeling and so on. Not against sharing particularly. Questions are very important. And they may be important to you, could be important to you, to get you to see the way in which you keep putting stuff on top of what it is that you need to fundamentally see. What you need to see. And what you need to see is always right in front of you. It's right in front of you, and instead of continuing to look and see what that actually is, big what question, what is that? It's practically irresistible to go into a why. That's there because of this, or I feel this way because of that. Not incorrect, it's just what? Circular. It just goes around and around and around. So have you got any questions? Jesse?
Well, what is no sense appetite? Do you have a no sense appetite?
What?
What is no sense appetite?
Where'd you get that from?
The prayer things.
Well, the Maitri Bhavana. So what was the complete statement that is bringing this, causing this question to arise? I'm very interested in responding, so I'm not.
It's been I don't know, but it's been a question that I've had for about a week or two.
Okay. It's a good one. You may be surprised by the answer. I know I will be. Jason?
It says abandoning vain discussions, having a clear vision, free from sense appetites and addictions, may all beings be happy and at peace.
So when it says free from them, it doesn't mean that they are not there. It just means that they don't run you. That they don't have that those desires and those cravings are not, you're not shutting down on those so that they run around through a rabbit hole and come up somewhere else with a different kind of mask on and create more issues. That you actually look at that in the face and relate to it directly. And this is the part that's difficult. You may, I don't want to even use the word indulge, but you may be drawn into that, and you may be able to, you could say, hold your ground or stand back away from it and not be sucked into that whirlwind. But what is so important, and this is so often missed because we are so interested in what? In accomplishing. We're so interested in controlling. We're so interested in getting a result, like free from sense appetites finally. So the freedom that is talked about there, or the sense appetite itself, needs to be seen clearly instead of just the surface of it, which involves so many layers of preconceptions and ideas. Who caused it, why it's there, why we've never been able to get rid of that, or why we're constantly under the it's like being in a rainstorm. You can't stop rain just by, I won't allow any rain to hit me. It does, but quite often we tend to work with it that way. We tend to put a lot of energy into the control modality. Not saying there isn't some control, but before we start reaching out with control, it seems to be important to see what it actually is. And that's challenging for everyone in different ways. Some people may have more difficulty with that than others. Some people are the people that come from AFR, from drug recovery situations. Sometimes people are extremely, I don't know if you call it addictive, but are extremely taken in by that. They can have all the ideas and concepts and opinions and aspirations to get out of that, and it's very, very difficult to pull out of that kind of a nosedive. It's just the momentum is so powerful, connected with the whole chemical situation. So free from sense appetites means just this, and here's the answer that you could contemplate along with that is, first, you have to see what it is to be chained by it. Chained by it. You have to see what it is that's locking you into that. We're not saying there isn't extreme desire to be tied into some particular appetite. Not saying that that's needs to be shut down or gotten rid of, but we need to see the way in which that occurs. And then if we do have some say so about it, it'll come out of that kind of awareness rather than out of some kind of a knee-jerk, control situation, or you need more drugs in this area to stop this from happening, and so on and so forth more.
How do we apply a spirit of like inclusion to a particularly destructive?
It's very hard. It's very hard, because that comes out of karma, or out of beginningless, and as it says in the was it Sandokai, the rivers flowing in the darkness. You can't actually see the first cause of anything, and so when you, as an individual, start to have experience really intense struggle with grasping or being attached to something that's just pulling on you. We've talked a little bit about this before, but it seems to be necessary to bring as much awareness to that as we can and do as little as possible. When I say do as little as possible, that's what sitting meditation is about. We're actually training ourselves to just observe. You can't really do it. You've probably all noticed that. No matter how much you sit, as soon as you get back out and mix it up in, at Starbucks, excuse me, or with your family, or with your, we get pulled into emotional dynamics that are just so difficult to deal with. And so all we can really do is to strengthen the awareness. So the awareness begins to, you've heard me say, I know you've heard this and everyone has. So that the awareness itself starts to come out in front of the conceptual stuff, because the thinking process is what we're always using to protect ourselves from that intense tactile kind of reality, that kind of feeling that gets us frightening, because we move out into that and we realize that we're starting to lose control, or lose what the concept of control points to. If you go into that deep enough, you see that you never really had any control. Sheldon.
So some of these things that we have this attachment to, this sense, this attachment to senses.
Yes.
For some of us, that's pretty destructive, those things that we're attached to. And it seems like the only way that we're going to have any kind of chance of survival is to abstain completely from those things. So how do we include those things and still continue to abstain?
How's that working for you so far? You made the statement.
Pretty lucky so far.
Yeah. Okay. Do you call that luck?
Yeah, I really did.
Okay, call it luck. So you don't feel like you did it out of some kind of wonderful self-control or exertion. You managed to.
Or like fear.
No, that's a good fear of knowing that is a deep hole that you're going to go. If you go back that direction, you're going to go down into that cavern. Okay, what's the question?
How do we abstain and continue to include?
Just like you're doing it. And so, of course, I'm very biased when it comes to anything dealing with emotions or passion, aggression, ignorance, all the difficulty we have living our life. I'm very biased. I'm saying, please hold still, spend some time on the cushion looking at the wall. Actually take time out from your busy schedule of fighting with reality and come back, hold still, sit down, have all the senses open, and just watch what continues to move. Have to do a whole lot of it. That's the part that's hard to hear about. Probably an hour a day isn't going to get it. But it's a good start. We should do it as much as we can, but it seems to be necessary because from beginningless time, we as human beings, we've been around for a long time, and the force of this, the idea, the that we actually believe our personalities. We actually believe there is a person, a solid being who is who can achieve or lose or win. It's not the case. There is no solid being there. Sorry to be so vague. Shoka.
How does a robe help, hold your seat with difficulty?
You mean being ordained?
Yeah.
It gives you some kind of a reference point. So you receive a vow to be. The basic one is the Bodhisattva vow to be with all things. Stop fighting with everything. Stop killing your thoughts. Stop murdering. Which means whatever arises, don't do anything with it. Well, of course, unless you have to, and then there's no, you have to. More?
It just seems like there's a really.
This is a statement now. But go ahead.
What's the contrast between wearing the robe and functioning and not wearing the robe?
Paraphrase yourself. Say what you said, just use a different word.
As a question?
Yeah.
How does the robe help me to function in a way that's helpful?
Okay, it gives you, for you personally, and this is not for sale. I'm not promoting doing any of this. I'm not saying you should decide what you need to do with your life. I'm not here to sell you on anything. But someone who comes this way and decides they want to receive precepts, a formal vow to be with all things and to do good and not do harm and all the other things that go, all the whole 16 precepts, then they are to be observed. And one of the ways that we observe those is by seeing that we can't quite do it. We can't just follow that as orders or laws or rules. So it just gives you a reference point to work with your mind as an awareness practice. It's not really a belief system. Buddhism, at least the way it's presented here, is not a belief system. It's just a way of teaching awareness so that we can live in a sane, uplifted, and gentle way with ourselves and with others. Stop making war on our minds. Stop making war on other people. It can be difficult. And when you actually start to sit, meditate over time, things tend to get, if you've been covering things up, they might tend to get uncovered. So you personally might be having difficulty that had you not meditated, had you just gone on and become a mechanical engineer like you were planning on doing. Not really, he was going to be a shaman. He still is a shaman. So then you might be able to work with this in a different way, a way of actually avoiding certain things. But being a meditator, this is a threat particularly, but you're kind of in for it. What you're in for is good news and say bad news. It's good news in that you're going to actually see the truth because you're insisting on it. You're taking your body, speech, and mind, and you're holding it still on a cushion, and you're going to look and see what this mind is for yourself. You're going to see it. You have to believe anything I say. I even say, forget everything I said. If something is important, you won't be able to forget it. So it's going to help you. Speaking to you personally, it gives you a reference point. It already does. I can see that in your practice. It already gives you a way of coming back to square one and being genuine with yourself and with your feelings and emotions. I'm not saying it's comfortable. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable for you and for a lot of people. More? Good question. Thank you.
From Shane out in California, he asks, other than our body and what we have for breakfast, what do we have control of?
It's not a lot. I suppose he wants to hear more than that. Let's see. We have control of. Well, once you get here, you go and you look in the mirror, and let's first of all see what you don't have control of. at least we have any, if we had control over this and we decided to come here as a man, woman, child, actually, and not be, to be this particular way, this particular sex or race or this intelligence level or whatever you want to say. Go look in the mirror and look at how much control you've had so far. Not much. At least we don't remember it. And so here you are, you see and you watch yourself grow up from being a child, and you look at all the variabilities that happen. You look at the relationship that you have with your mom, your dad, and you notice that your relationship with your dad is terrible, but your friend has a really good relationship with his dad. And they have no say-so about that. You can't go and say, I want to trade him in. This guy's not good. I'm not going to use any harsh words here. But, to take it there, that person is doing the best they can, probably, with what is available to them. They don't have, you could just pick on my stepfather. Even if he had, knowing him, this is not a particularly and judgment of him, but he would not be ready for this kind of a teaching. It would not be ready for it. He might listen. I mean, if he were brought in and made to listen or something, or but he's not really ready for that. What he's ready to do is exactly what he's been doing. Whereas other people want to hear more. They're at the edge of their life and they're looking at the causes and effects, causes, conditions that arise, and they're seeing people are ready. They want to know more about what this is. What is this, being a living being? What is it to actually understand cause and effect and know that you don't have much control? Like Shane's question, when I say not much, you have some. I mean, if you say, well, I can have cream in my coffee or not. I like to have a lot of cream. On the other hand, let's take a look. Let's look deeper. Where did this come? That which drinks the coffee. How about what picks the coffee cup up? How about who made the coffee cup? And how about where the coffee came from? Not let alone the cow that produced the cream. I assume that's real cream. So, I mean, there's just so many complications. It's so vast and complicated. I won't even go into the parts that are in the nucleus of a cell, which I'm sure you would like to hear me talk about that. I mean, it's so complicated. You take the smallest little thing and look inside of it, and it's just like a whole universe in there of little biological machines that are operating and making things, pushing on this and taking out the garbage. And then there's the walls of the cell. We've been reading about that. Like, if the walls of the cell aren't healthy, then they can't get the garbage out, and they can't get the nutrients in. It's a very, very interesting thing that we have. What, Shane? No say so about, unless you can buy a magic potion. It's true. It's like we're always looking for some kind of like if I do this, this will work. And to some extent, those kind of controls do work when we really look deeply into the causes and conditions. It's called science, empirical information, and so on. You can have a little bit of access to that, but not much. The control that I like to point out to people is you actually have the ability, and you have the control, and you have the say-so to take the 24 hours in a day and take an hour or two out of that and hold still and put the damn thing in neutral. Of course, when you put it in neutral, if you haven't been practicing this, when you put it in neutral, you're going to see how some kind of different kinds of personality engines keep running, keep humming. It's like being at a speedway, where all these cars are banging into each other going around. What's that called? Stock cars. All with different colors on them, trying to get attention. That's like our thoughts are like that. But the wonderful thing about it is if you sit down and hold still, all of that begins to slow down, and you begin to see fundamentally how that operates. And when you see it, it's very difficult to pass that on to someone else as a teaching. Say, oh, here, because it's not about so much about information. Information is involved. realization or a fundamental understanding of what this is doesn't really function out of cause and effect. You can't, even if you meditate, this doesn't mean you can meditate and eventually, because you meditated, you will awaken. That's part of it, but not all of it.
What's the rest of it?
Two arrows, the arrow points meeting in midair. That's the other part. That's the part that you can't. How do you explain something that is so ineffable that you can't actually make happen? It's like you have to, it seems, you have to stop adding to everything. Stop, subtract, don't do any math at all with your mind. Don't add, don't subtract, don't divide. Don't add to it with your opinions, your ideas. Don't subtract by your judgments, taking away, trying to stop things. And sure, that's risky when you're coming to things like addictions. Well, shouldn't I do this or do that? I can't. What if I'm suffering so much I just want to end my life? It happens. But the momentum of karma or personality is so powerful and is so deep that it seems that the only thing that we can do is sit back and observe the way we keep confusing ourselves, keep laying over the top of what is fundamentally the truth. Difficult.
How can we intercept karma?
Watch it.
Will it dissolve from that then?
Maybe. There's no guarantees of anything. Anytime anybody guarantees you anything, what is it? Red flag should go up because they want something from you. This is what does this body language mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, very good. She fell right into that one. No, maybe I fell into it. Questions?
How do our questions to you reveal our confusion?
I would say that it shows the way in which you take information about anything and reify or fuel the confusion that was already there in the first place. It shows how you're doing that. And then I might, depending on the question, I might have the opportunity to step into that. And usually I don't have much to say other than, are you sitting? Are you practicing? Do you have an awareness practice? Is it ongoing? You hold the form, use the forms. These forms are very important. It's not about believing in this thing. This is just a hunk of wood that somebody did a fairly good job of carving. But it's a reference point in Buddhism. We need some kind of a reference point, but it's not that this is holy and everything else is junk. It needs some kind of a reference point. And so like the robe that Shoko's asking about, that's a reference point, which actually allows you to see more clearly the way you're attached to other things. So we actually attach ourselves to this path, and then the path starts to fall apart as we go along on it. Sometimes called the 100-foot pole. Everything makes sense. You're climbing a 100-foot pole, and then you get to the top of the pole, and it seems to be necessary to step off out of all of those forms. Chazan.
Since we started doing the Maitri Bhavana,
Yes.
the Bodhisattva prayer, I have a lot of resistance that comes up around the idea of divine entities or praying. So what is that practice?
The practice is a good question. Recently, we've do the Maitri Bhavana, or just spending some time concerned with others' welfare, simply put. So it cuts through the self-centeredness somewhat, and then If you notice in the Bodhisattva prayer that sometimes it has an emotional aspect to it, it certainly does for me. And it has kind of it draws us into a realm that both exists and non-exists. I'll say it again, a realm that both exists and non-exists. The example I'm using all the time, I'm kind of tired of using. I'm going to think of something else. Let's see. I'll give you something that exists and non-exists, and then you get an idea what I'm talking about. Because the only way you're going to know about this really is when this body-mind drops. Your particular beingness as a body. On the roof. Here we go. So on the roof of the temple, there are about 450 to 500. What?
Prairie chickens.
Prairie chickens? Okay, prairie chickens. What color are they?
Rainbow.
They're all rainbow colored, see? And so those are on the roof. Now, does everybody see that? I mean, in your mind? But you might see less than that. That's a lot of work getting all those. But you see them. Mine are all lined up around the edge and then filled in. I know how the roof is shaped, and you might not. So what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is that area, regardless of what your visualization of it is, both exists and non-exists. It doesn't. It is not in a space like this, but it's in some kind of space, and it's not in a time like this, but it's in some kind of a dimension. And you can't, even though it was just created just now, we created that together. I talked about it. Shazan made some mention of what it was, and we all have some kind of a picture. Now, if you're extremely visual, you might be able to actually see them all and see what they're wearing, things like that. Or you,
what a prairie chicken is.
what?
What is a prairie chicken?
It's what's on the roof. So the idea there is to demonstrate that is an actual is a realm, and that's the kind of realm we go into when we fall asleep. We go into a dream area, which is extremely real, and we're at the mercy of our dreams. And when this body mind drops, that's what's coming. You could say, well, not so, because the brain will be dead and consciousness is part of the brain, and you could speculate all you want, and wouldn't necessarily be wrong. But whatever you believe is probably going to show up.
How should we understand divine being?
It's a highly polarized and relative way of talking about something that doesn't have a solid center, that is completely left all self-centeredness, that is not separate from anything. But we as separated beings, egos, who like this and don't like that, and have a problem with this and really appreciate this, and are living in a highly polarized world, karma, cause and effect, then one of the ways that we can use to have some kind of aspiration to work with this negativity that arises as this world, the eight worldly dharmas, is to have an image like that. Theistic traditions go, you could say overboard. They completely use it. They take everything away from human beings and say, no, you just have to pray to the divine beings, the God. It's very much emphasizing a singularity of a God who created all of this that we have to supplicate or check in with. Not wrong. There are people who need to practice that way, and they're doing it. They're not. This is not being marketed as something better. It's just some people are not ready to do this. So in our situation, we're aspiring, just like we have wishes for someone is ill, is dying, or someone has passed on, or someone is having a lot of trouble. We would pray for others. We would pray for ourselves too, but we could do that. How does that work for you? You ever have any emotional?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's just a cultivation of trying to put others first, or to try to meet their suffering. But the word prayer, being raised theistically, has been charged to mean somebody else is going to take care of it. So
Yeah.
how should we understand the word prayer?
Both and neither. It has to be not two. Anytime we separate and then we're right back to the warfare that's happening all over the earth. We're right back to polarizing things as right and wrong, good and evil are the extremes. We're not saying there isn't some intense suffering and difficulty and confusion going on. We're not trying to whitewash everything or blue wash it or pink wash it. More?
How should we use our awareness to relate to those practices?
How are you doing it now?
Just doing them.
It's pretty simple. You'll notice that nothing no matter how much you do a form, it rarely repeats. You can repeat it and repeat it, but if you do it enough, you'll notice that every time it's slightly different. That even though you're doing as close as you can the exact same thing, whether it's sitting practice and meditation, that's why they call SokukoJi calls sitting practice of meditation properly understood as beginner's mind. Sit down and begin like you've never meditated before. There's no building into a great meditator. There's always just this very simple beginner's mind. Why is that so? Why does he say that? Well, I don't know. He's gone and I can't ask him. But based on my understanding of how this looks to me, it's because you have to look at what's exactly in front of you all the time until you stop looking at what you think something is in front of you and you start to see through your preconceptions, your ideas, your judgments, and your hopes and your fears into the fundamental nature of reality, which is what? Not separate. Everything you're looking at, it's like you're looking at yourself. Yes.
And time is short, but I have questions from Liam and from Sandra.
Yes.
So from Liam, he asks a couple of questions. Who would control the body and then its life and death if what we are is not what we perceive as this body or even human?
Wow, that's pretty elaborate, Liam. Oh, there's Liam there. Read that again.
Who would control the body and then its life and death if what we are is not what we perceive as this body or even human?
I don't know. What do you think, Liam? I'm ready for Sandra's.
Sandra in New York. Do you need a reference point until you see there are no reference points?
Yes, I think that's in a nutshell. That's the basic idea with awareness practice or Buddhism. You need to have some kind of touchstone, and it's nice that if that reference point is something that doesn't trap you into some kind of slavery. So it's something that doesn't turn you into a solidify or help you to fixate in some particular area, some particular realm. So the reference point is, and again, I'm not trying to promote it, but for some people, it seems to be necessary to receive vows. Other people, not going to do that. And they shouldn't. You should do exactly what you need to do. But if you're here, you're giving me permission to talk to you. And I'm telling you, I'm suggesting to you, I'm not ordering you. It wouldn't work anyway. But I'm suggesting that look at your mind, sit down. You're a human being, as far as we know. I don't think there's any aliens here. You're a human being. And you have your issues, your problems with your life that are pushing, pulling. Sometimes there's intense suffering that we have no source for. Sometimes we have fear that it's like it's ridiculous. I'm afraid. What am I afraid of? There's nothing happening. I'm afraid. It's very difficult. And I'm saying, I'm encouraging you, please spend some time looking at your mind. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to join anything, but join your butt to the cushion. Sit down with a sense of presence, a sense of dignity, hold very still, and watch what continues to move, because what continues to move is the confusion that we keep fueling. And if you look at it enough, you'll see where that confusion gets its fuel. It's like a crazy engine that is running based on the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. You have to be clear about it. And that's when the ego or the self-centeredness you start to see that it's discontinuous. There is a self and there are selves, but they're discontinuous and they're shifting and changing constantly. And when there's a grasping at a self or an ego, and the way I can show you that, and I'm not going to do that, but if I were to insult you, it wouldn't have to even be based on anything. I could just look at you and see, who could I insult? I could probably insult Chiesa. But if I were to insult you, I'm not going to do that. But if I were to insult you and deliver it, even if I were acting, you'd feel it. You don't want to be criticized or insulted. You feel it. That's the self-centeredness showing up, because even if there's no real threat, still we resonate with anything that's kind of gonna hurt us or take us down a notch or disrespect us. And the other one is, if I compliment you, oh, you're so wonderful at this, or you're just, and don't misunderstand, I'm not saying there's anything we shouldn't do any of that. But you'll notice that if you are complimented by something changes your sense of who you are and what you are. It shows that the identity is discontinuous. If it were continuous, you wouldn't be affected by what anybody said. You know who you are. Which is, of course, not two. Again, we're right back to that situation of not two. If you both know who you are and don't know who you are, that's also non-dual or not two.
3 more questions. These are from Kozan. Brittany, Chickman, and Kozan are watching together from Traverse City. And Kozan asks, if there is not a direct question arising when it is time for an interview with the teacher, is there another way to open to the teacher?
Yeah, there is.
How?
Just sit there. Sit there and look at the teacher. Space.
Question from Chickman.
I'm ready for it.
He asked.
Wait, now I gotta get ready. Who is it again?
Chickman.
Oh no, not him.
Not you.
Go ahead, what's the question? I'm looking right at him. I think of that little green dot.
Beginner's mind seems empty of something. What is it empty of?
Is that a trick question? It's empty of a know-it-all reference point. It's empty of an accumulator, of a person who's slowly getting better and better and better. I mean, if you practice meditation, eventually over time, you'll start to get a credential. I know I did. That's why I know about this stuff. Yeah, I'm getting better. I'm able to sit more still. My legs don't hurt quite as much. My thinking is slowed down. I think I'm becoming more clear. I think I'm starting to really get somewhere. Starting to finally be a good meditator. The beginner's mind is you go back and you just go back to square one and start over. So it's empty of the accumulation of reference points, including the one referred to as a credential of a good meditator or an expert meditator. It's like an expert bodhisattva. I'm so good at saving all beings. I don't know why people don't notice it, because because I really, really work hard. I really sacrifice myself, and I just put everyone before myself. You know, and all I get is just flack. People don't realize how much I've dedicated myself to others. Time for what?
Dedicate the merit.
Yes, we have another talk starting in 10 minutes. And you're welcome to stay for that talk. It will be on, what's going to be on? Arrows.
Arrow points. meeting.
2 arrows meeting in midair should be.
In the back of your
Very
yellow
exciting.
book is the dedication of merit. I'd also like to remind everybody that this Saturday is our all day. Please come. And we have donation boxes in the hallway and online, so give as much as you can. We appreciate it.
There is penetrating to all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. SokukoJi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita,